We begin the second panel. The first speech is by Professor Miss Delivani, whom I now invite to the podium. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to a conference I consider very important, because it precisely discusses the country's most pressing issue, whether it will survive or not. For today's talk, I chose to focus on a prophetic interpretation of the acute problem of immigration, illegal immigration in Europe. Despite its importance, it remains surprisingly little known. On the contrary, it is, I would say deliberately, kept in the shadows and above all, burdened with accusations of conspiracy theory. What I've decided to share with you tonight is, in my belief, neither science fiction nor conspiracy theory. Everything I mention is a documented reality of early 20th century Europe. I confess I am deeply concerned by what is happening with the wave of migration in Europe and its consequences, as they precisely match what is written in the Kallergi Plan. And I believe that anyone who reads the lines of this plan cannot help but wonder what is really going on. What might be hidden behind the unspeakable drama of these migrants? What is the connection between the European elite, the Kallergi Prize, and everything else? In part one of my speech, I will review the origins, content, and predictions of Count Coudenhove Kallergi's theory. I will also attempt to argue that the carefully concealed Kallergi theory is not only difficult to dismiss as conspiratorial, but in fact lies at the heart of what we are experiencing regarding Europe's immigration crisis. I would say it is a prophetic theory. In part two, I will address current events in Europe, and of course in Greece, that appear to conform to the centuries-old predictions, or perhaps commands of Kallergi. Let me first stress that Kallergi was not some random, eccentric, or incompetent individual. This clarification is necessary, as the Kallergi plan is often lightly dismissed as the product of an imaginative young man. However, progressing through time from the publication of his vision for Europe, one cannot exclude the possibility that we are witnessing a conspiracy orchestrating the genocide of the peoples of Europe. Let me remind you of some important details. In 1922, Kallergi, an accomplished young man of aristocratic descent, the son of an Austrian diplomat and a Japanese mother with a PhD in philosophy, founded the Pan-European movement in Vienna. This movement aspired to create a new international order centered on European unification under the leadership of the United States. European unification would be the first step toward creating a world government. This new movement was headquartered in the Habsburg Palace and disseminated its ideas through the journal Pan-Europa. It is worth emphasizing that in Kallergi's vision, the European Union would be led by the United States, as in fact it has been. Over time, the plan was forgotten for nearly a century. Yet for the initiated, Kallergi is rightly considered the father of a united Europe. Few know, however, that the Pan-Europa plan contained a sinister prophecy, even an explicit goal: the disappearance of Europe. Indeed, in the foreword of his book Praktischer Idealismus, Kallergi claimed that the future citizens of the United States of Europe would bear no relation to the old peoples of the European continent. Rather, they would be a type of subhuman of mixed race, the gray race. Kallergi clearly advocated that the peoples of Europe should be mixed with Asiatic and colored races to create a multinational, rootless mass without quality, history, memory, or culture, easily manipulated by the elite of the future. He went on to state that the man of the future will be of mixed race. Today's races and classes will gradually disappear due to the elimination of space, time, and prejudice. The Eurasian Negroid race of the future, physically similar to the ancient Egyptians, will replace the diversity of peoples with a uniform humanity. These views are known as the Kallergi Plan, often dismissed as the Kallergi conspiracy theory. It's essentially an announcement of genocide against the white peoples of Europe, possibly ideologically comparable to the Holocaust of the Jews. Kallergi proposed a plan to mix white Europeans with other races. In his view, the elimination of nations and peoples could be achieved, among other means, through immigration. Kallergi, remember, the very originator of the idea of a united Europe, and thus the father of the EU, proposed Beethoven's Ode to Joy as the EU's anthem and envisioned a revival of the Holy Roman Empire. It's worth noting that the flag Kallergi proposed for his Pan-Europe is the same one later adopted and never changed by the European Union. Kallergi was not alone. He had the support of powerful individuals of his time, heads of state, princes, bankers, who embraced the idea of a united Europe. After World War II, Winston Churchill, the New York Times, and even the CIMI also agreed with and supported his ideas. The Kallergi plan remained largely unknown to the public, not due to lack of interest, but seemingly because of a kind of unofficial censorship.
Ωστόσο, ορισμένοι που επιδιώκουν να
For
θέσουν
example, the
το
Independent
καθεστώς
News
Καλέργη
published a summary of
στην
Kallergi's book in
ενδεχόμενη χρήση
1990
ως
and
συνωμοσία
proposed its
και
republication,
ενδεχομένως τη
but
δάση
police
εντολής για
confiscated
να
the only
συστηματίσει
circulating copy.
ότι πρόκειται για μια απλή σύμπτωση. Όμως, το σχέδιο πλαισιώνεται από ορισμένα
It's strange that the book is not listed on official bibliographic websites related to the pan-European movement.
ορισμένα από αυτά. Πρώτον, προς τιμή του Coudenhove Kallergi,
Some who wish to appear serious and avoid anything labeled as conspiracy might dismiss all this as coincidence.
αναγνωρίζεται ότι συνέβαλαν στην προώθηση του σχεδίου Καλέργη. Και οι λέγοι σήμερα βραβευτές
But the plan is accompanied by events too precise to be considered random.
είναι η Άγγελα Μέρκελ, πρώην ομοσπονδιακή καγκελάριος της Γερμανίας, σε
I cite a few. A European award was established in Kallergi's honor, given every 2 years to Europeans deemed to have advanced his vision.
πιόνια της λέσχης Bilderberg. Δεύτερον, όπως
Among the recipients chosen by UNESCO's Peace Committee are Angela Merkel for her refugee reception efforts and Herman Van Rompuy, both central figures in the Bilderberg network.
το πρόβλημα υπογεννητικότητας και γύρανσης του πληθυσμού.
The United States continually urges Europe, via the UN, to accept millions of migrants to solve its demographic and aging problems.
Συγκεκριμένα, σε έκθεση των Ηνωμένων Εθνών του
Yet at the same time, the US
με τίτλο «Μετανάστευση αντικατάστασης. Μία λύση για τη μείωση
increasingly restricts immigration into its own borders.
ότι μέχρι το 2025 η Ευρώπη θα χρειαστεί
A 2000 UN report titled Replacement Migration: Is it a solution to declining and aging populations?
αυτό το ακριβές νούμερο που αυτόματα παραπέμπει σε συνδυασμό
Stated that Europe would need 159 million migrants by 2025.
Εύλογα, εξάλλου τίθεται το ερώτημα του γιατί
That number alone, paired with everything else, strongly implies the existence of a deliberate plan.
όπως προγράμματα στήριξης οικογενειών, ανάλογα, λόγω χάρη, με αυτά που εφαρμόζουν
A reasonable question arises. Why doesn't the UN encourage European countries to implement family support policies like those in France, instead of pushing what amounts to demographic genocide?
του Μπροκ Γκίρσομ, πρώην Διευθυντή του Παγκόσμιου Οργανισμού Υγείας,
A striking statement by Dr.
ενισχύει τις υπόνοιες για την ύπαρξη σκοτεινού σχεδίου εναντίον της βιωσιμότητας της
Brock Chisholm, former director of the WHO, further supports suspicions of a dark agenda.
Αυτό που σε όλους τους τόπους οι άνθρωποι πρέπει να κάνουν είναι
He said, "What people everywhere must do is limit births and promote interracial marriages, with the goal of creating a single race in a world governed by a central authority, a world government." Finally, it's hard not to see the link between the Kallergi plan and the choices of some European governments, including Greece, to eliminate religious education in schools, dilute the teaching of national languages, distort history in textbooks, and devalue symbols and victories that sustain national pride and identity.
τη διδασκαλία των θρησκευτικών στα σχολεία, να υποβαθμίζουν τη διδασκαλία της εθνικής γλώσσας.
In conclusion, even those who try to steer clear of any notion of conspiracy cannot ignore the glaring reality. The uncontrolled immigration Europe is experiencing aligns in detail with Kallergi's writings, predictions already coming true.
Υπερηφάνεια και την εθνική ταυτότητα. Συμπερασματικά, είναι
Certainly, one might still argue this is all mere coincidence, not the result of a deliberate plan.
όποιας μορφής σχέση με θεωρίες συνωμοσίας
Even if we respect the opinions of those who categorically reject the existence of conspiracies in global affairs, they cannot deny that what Kallergi envisioned in 1902 is now unfolding in Europe.
λεπτομερώς καταγραμμένα στο βιβλίο του Καλέργη με τη μορφή ευχών.
Now I move briefly to the second part of my speech. What is happening today in Europe?
Ότι πρόκειται περί απλής σύμπτωσης και όχι περί προδιαγεγραμμένου σχεδίου.
Our home, Europe, has been in rapid decline for decades, succumbing to the demographic law of population replacement. Civilizations, as is known, have finite lifespans, rarely exceeding 200 years. Western civilization is already in a prolonged phase of decline and entropy. One of the first and most dramatic signs of this decay is falling birth rates in an aging population. The EU's population is expected to be smaller in 2100 than in 2022, and increasingly older, with a steep drop in the number and share of people of working age. To counter this demographic self-erasure and following elite advice, Europe has opened its borders wide to migrants of all races and colors, from war-torn and impoverished countries, some ruled by unstable regimes. As of January 1st, 2024, 37.7 million people born outside the EU reside within its borders, representing 10% of the total EU population, an increase of 2.3 million from the previous year. Another 18 million EU residents were born in a different EU country, up by 200,000 compared to the previous year. And this accounts only for official migration. Illegal immigration remains untracked in many countries, especially in Greece. In absolute numbers, the highest foreign-born populations are in Germany, 16.9 million, France, 9.3 million, Spain, 8.8 million, Italy, 6.7 million. The highest proportion of foreign-born residents is in Luxembourg, 51%, Malta, 30.8%, Cyprus, 26.9%, Ireland, 22.6%. By contrast, countries like Poland, 2.6%, Romania, Bulgaria, and Slovakia, which have long imposed immigration limits, remain largely unaffected. Fertility estimates reveal striking contrasts. The average fertility rate in 47 non-European countries is 4.3 children per woman, while in Europe it's just 1.4, and similarly low in Greece. This failure to replace deaths with births, combined with aging and uncontrolled immigration, aligns directly with Kallergi's predictions of Europe's eventual disappearance. A few related quotes. Giulio Meotti notes Europe loses about 2 million people annually, consistently replaced by migrants. David Coleman calls this replacement by suicide as birth rates fall and Islamic institutions are normalized.
στο εξωτερικό αντιπροσώπευαν λιγότερο από το 5% του πληθυσμού στην Πολωνία.
Lord Sachs recently stated that declining fertility could mark the end of civilization in Europe.
Ιανουαρίου 2024, τη Ρουμανία, τη Βουλγαρία και τη Σλοβακία.
Cardinal Robert Sarah warned that Islam will overtake Europe due to birth rates.
Όρια στη μετανάστευση. Αναφέρω επίσης γενικούς υπολογισμούς.
As for Greece, reliable estimates of the number of legal and illegal immigrants and their origins are inherently uncertain due to the country's vast and poorly guarded borders.
4,3 γεννήσεις κατά γυναίκα, ενώ η αντίστοιχη στην Ευρώπη.
Still, estimates suggest foreigners make up about 7% of the native population.
Δηλαδή, η μη αντικατάσταση του ποσοστού θανάτων.
There is a labor shortage, particularly in agriculture and other jobs Greeks are reluctant to do, estimated at 200,000. Greek citizenship is granted easily, and children of migrants or refugees are recognized as Greek. Over half of Greeks reportedly support immigration, believing it helps meet labor demands. This humanitarian and economic view, however, in no way negates the terrifying predictions of Kallergi, which in recent decades have only been compounded by rising terrorism in Europe. Our homeland, unfortunately, ignores the Kallergi plan. Let us reflect, however, on Greece's tragic fate, submitting unhesitatingly to foreign directives, unlike most other EU countries that strive to defend their borders and protect their national identity. Case in point, the recent Greek decision to legalize approximately 300,000 migrants, with the rationale that they would integrate into the native population and help offset declining birth rates and aging demographics. Unless long-term and well-thought-out measures are taken, both to boost births and control migration, it is certain that in a few decades, Greece's population will perfectly match Kallergi's detailed descriptions. In closing, I remind you that Kallergi's vision of a united Europe was never hidden. It aimed from the start at establishing a world government ruled by a global elite or state. To those skeptical of conspiracies, as we know, plans for global government are proceeding steadily. Recently, the U.S. has withdrawn from the existing world order while dismissing the influence of the EU. And unless population trends are quickly reversed, Kallergi's prophecies will be fully realized within the EU. Though I stated at the outset that I'm not inclined toward conspiracy theories, I cannot ignore the fact that the most important decisions affecting our planet and our lives are being made and carried out without our consent. Thank you very much.